Hello, welcome to the EngageTech YouTube channel. My name is Amelia Loy, and today I'm going to be showing you a demo of Harvest Digital Planning's community engagement tools. And today I've got with me Adam Smith. Hi Adam, welcome. So Adam's
Good
going to do
morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, Adam's going to do a 15-minute demo of the tools that he and his co-founder, Brian Ashton, have created for community and stakeholder engagement for government. And then I'm going to ask a series of questions of Adam about the product and how it can be used by governments. Thanks so much for joining us, Adam.
No worries.
I'm going to hand over to you now for a screen share.
So thanks, Amelia. My name is Adam Smith. I'm a director here at Harvest Digital Planning. Along with my co-founder, Brian Ashton, we've been running Harvest since about 2011, and we're really passionate about using technology and data to connect citizens and government together. A bit about my background. My background's actually as an urban planner, so a lot of the work that we do has a kind of cities focused in it. And Brian's background is in kind of IT, but also in GIS and spatial sciences. So with those two skills we combine, we create a lot of place-based focused things. And
Great.
Sorry, my slides. There we go. So we kind of describe Harvest as sitting at this intersection between people, place, and technology, and we kind of sit right in that middle ground there. So how do we use technology to connect not only people with people, but also people to place, and to sort of actively shape the cities and communities that they live in? And we do this with a whole range of kind of civic participation tools. At one end of the spectrum, we'll actually build these tools and design them from the ground up. So that means working closely with clients to collaborate and create new and innovative ways to engage the community. And then down to the spectrum of we actually have 5 off-the-shelf products that can be used for various digital engagement purposes. Some of our clients are shown here, but we like to think that we try to work with the people that are really interested and passionate about this stuff and want to push it to the next level, and really want to be innovators in this space. And we basically have these kind of 3 principles that we operate on. Enlightening is about how do you inform people about things that are going on in their cities and their communities, and how do you use that as a tool to get better participation. So it's one thing to just kind of ask a person a question, but it's another thing to sort of educate them in a process where they're prepared to give you really useful information. And our second principle is about empowering people. Now, this goes 2 ways. This is about empowering members of the community to really, actively participate in a civic life. But it's also about empowering our users or our clients or the government to get out and step out into this space and to find easier and better ways to connect with people. And the final principle is this idea of delight. And for us, this is a really important one. The idea that things look really sharp and are really playful and invite you and inspire you to participate is a really important aspect of the work that we do. We believe if you go out with a boring kind of government approach, people will immediately disengage and you're back to the kind of usual suspects. But if you kind of make it fun and on brand and delightful to interact with, you'll get a much better outcome that way. So those are kind of principles. I'm now going to kind of cut over to some live demos of what we consider some of the best practice projects and tools that we have available. We're going to go from a couple kind of spoke one to a couple of the products and just go through that gamut really quickly. So I'll cut over now to our first case study, which is a project that just won an award 2 weeks ago from the Planning Institute of Australia called Plan Bring Bank. And Plan Bring Bank was an engagement around urban planning issues. And the council wanted to find out what was kind of important to the community when it came to prioritizing planning issues. So we built this little application that's meant to be a gamified sort of experience for people to express their priorities. And how it worked was you would go and play a game. You would leave in some of your demographic details, so we knew where you lived and how old you were and all those kind of things. And then once you filled out all those, the game is pretty simple and straightforward. It just asks you a prompting question about which thing is more important to you. So in this question, it's which council facility is most important to you. And we show you two options side by side. And then you as the user need to make some decisions about which thing is more important. So for me, I'm a big fan of libraries. So I think libraries are more important. And then it's going to bring up the next two priorities at random and ask you which of these two is more important. And so you make your way through the game this way. So very simple to use. You're just, you're getting into a rhythm, and you're kind of just tapping the one that you prefer. And when you get to the end of the round, we give you some applause, and you go on to the next round. So again, a very simple, fun game on the front end, but on the back end, there's actually quite a rich data set that we've collected from you, because we now understand your ranked priorities from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we can also start to cross-tabulate those priorities. So we can say, what was most important to older people versus younger people, or what was most important in the northern part of the city as opposed to the southern part of the city. So that kind of richness of data is really important. And the other thing I really like about this project, which I think makes it a really special case study, was, you can build the best tools in the world, but if that's all you do, that doesn't mean anything, right? People may not come, they might not use them. What you have to do is kind of take them out into the streets. So council did a really fantastic job of taking this out into shops, into community meetings, into local organizations, grabbing people off the streets and getting them to engage with this game. We also translated it into, I believe, 7 languages. These are full translations. This isn't just the Google Translate, to try to really hit those kind of called communities and get a whole broad spectrum of participation. And we, as this project was going on, we were feeding back to that the council how they were tracking in these different segments, so they could go out and kind of agilely make adjustments to their kind of marketing promotion activities. So that's the plan, Brimbank. The next one is a little product we have called Play Story. And Play Story is about engaging with people about a plan for a future space. That could be a public space or a new street or a new public facility. But it's really about how do you tell the story about what the changes are going to be. This is a park master plan for council here in Victoria. And the way that Play Story works is you kind of set up your design proposals and you get this interactive plan, and then users can kind of dive into that each of those sections, and they get this little digital narrative about what's being proposed, what's the vision, what's the background. And as they're scrolling through this, the media is changing. That could be video, it could be images, it could be galleries, it could be before and after sliders. And so it's a really great way to express your content. And then integrated into that is this kind of commenting system. We found that a sentiment kind of question works really well. What do you think about this design proposal? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And then also tell us the reason why, because that's really important that you qualify those kind of responses. And then we actually publish those responses into a feed on the page. So you can kind of quickly scan each of those proposals and get a really good sense of, are people liking this? Is it resonating with people? Are we going to have a problem here? Do we need to make some adjustments? So that product is called Play Story. And the next product I wanted to go into was a product which is our flagship product, which is called the Hive. And the Hive is our digital engagement platform. So the Hive is kind of tools within a tool. There's over 35 different tools available in the Hive. And this is used by a range of state governments and also local governments. The one I'm showing you here is the state government of Victoria's whole of government engagement platform called Engage Victoria. So this gets used across all 7 departments and multiple agencies. It's a single point of contact for all Victorians to go to when there is a public engagement, so they know where to find all this stuff. And then it just hosts a range of different kind of what I call project or engagement websites. And each website will have a various different content or tools or engagement activities live on the page. So you can see here, we have kind of a survey. But there's actually in the Hive a whole range of, there's 9 participation tools available. And you can see this in our demo site. So we have a whole bunch of these that do a whole range of different types of data collection and would fall on various points of your engagement spectrum. This is one that we've just released last week, which is our new version of our collaborative mapping tool, which we call Social Map. And the amazing thing here that I find very interesting is we've kind of unlocked these, this ability to start to look at things in 3D environments. So this is in the city of Calgary. They did a sort of engagement around identifying things that were working and things that weren't in the central city, and they collected thousands, I think, of points here. But just that ability to kind of be able to visualize things in different ways and interact with spatial data is a really kind of interesting thing for the future of engagement. Another tool that's in the Hive is called Gather, and Gather is a user-generated content tool that you can use to crowdsource ideas or solutions. You could use it to collect stories from people about their experience or their perceptions of a place. You could use it to run a photo competition, so it's kind of a versatile tool. This was used by Vic Health here in Victoria for a public health engagement called Topspin, which was really about getting young people to help identify the tactics that big alcohol used to fuel a culture of binge drinking. And what they did was they put up a little bit of prize money to get people to create stuff for them. So it wasn't just about tell me your opinion, it was actually create something for me. And they're really successful in collecting all these kind of really amazing posters and artworks and stories. It could be, you know, just text, or it could be a meme, or it could actually be, you know, full-on graphic design kind of poster works. So really amazing stuff came out of this one. And then they did a weekly competition, so they could kind of we're awarding prizes every week to the best ones, and then there was an overall prize that got all the money. Another tool that we have in the Hive is called Fundit, and Fundit is our participatory budgeting style tool. And the way that Fundit works is it will actually, sorry, I'll jump to this one. You actually assign people a basket of money or points or votes, and you give them a menu of things that they can spend those points on or money on. And each item has its own cost or its own price tag. You can kind of learn more about it. This is the city of Glen Ira, and they were doing an engagement around kind of disability, and they prepared all these kind of videos and motion graphics. And then they give you 3 points, and they want you to spend those 3 points. So you kind of vote for each of those. And in other instances, that could be money. So here I have $100,000, and I can spend that on various items in my shopping list. So that's the sort of just a quick overview of some of the tools of the Hive. Like I said, there's 9 participation tools, over 25 content tools that help you communicate content and information, because that's a really important aspect of engagement. It's not just about data collection, it's about actually conveying important information to people. And then also the Hive, in addition to a whole range of other features, obviously the important thing is what do you get out of it at the end? What data comes out of that? So these are just kind of some sample reports of all the data metrics that we collect in the Hive. And this is a growing area of the platform that we keep building new sections to. And this is actually an export of that data. So you can see there's a whole range of metrics that gauge, you know, how well did this engagement perform? How well did I convert people from visiting the site to actually leaving a contribution or actually interacting with some of my content? And it gives you a lot of sort of overview information about which activities were working, what were the top activities, you know, how many people signed up to my my user community. Were they coming back for a second time, or was this their first time in the website, and how did they get there? All the way to answering questions about who are these people. So that's a really important part of the puzzle. We need to understand who we're engaging with, not just what people say. So tracking demographics of these people so we can understand how representative our samples are and in which ways they're skewed. So are they skewed towards a certain gender or a certain age group? Understanding where they're participating from, so we can make sure that we have a good geographic distribution of feedback, and also understanding, you know, what kinds of things are these people interested in, and which places are they interested in? Are they interested in their own little local community, or do they have a kind of broader geographic interest around them? So that's pretty much it from me, Amelia. That's a very quick overview. We have lots of projects that we've worked on over the years that you can find at our website at harvestdp.com, and also a number of clients that are constantly running engagements through the Hive.
That's a great demo, Adam. Thank you very much. And I want to highlight a couple of things that I saw through my lens. So as you know, I look at technology for community and stakeholder engagement through the EngageTech Spectrum. It's how I've been able to make sense of the industry. So I'd just like to share where I see some of these tools fitting into the spectrum. It sounds like the Hive, with its variety of participatory methods and different ways of communicating content, is a holistic solution for both online engagement, but it also considers some of the issues management and information management. You've done a very thorough job of that from what I can see in the reports that you guys provide. I quite like, in particular, that you're looking at the who as well as what people are saying, because as you said, it's a really important way to increase representation, especially if you're able to evaluate how well your techniques are reaching different segments of the community and whether or not you might try something different to expand the reach of your engagement and diversity of people who are participating in it. So I really like that. I wanted to highlight that. The other thing that I'd also like to highlight is that through some of these different crowdsourcing methods, particularly place story and the first method that you talked about, what do you call that technique, Adam? The first project, Brimbank one?
The Brimbank one, I think you would probably classify that as a prioritization activity.
Yeah. I really love that methodology as a way of both that one and social map as a way, and gather, as ways of crowdsourcing, but also gathering data to understand people's preferences, priorities, and values. And I like them for two reasons. One, because by doing that, you're enlightening the organization to understand what is of value to the community, not just on this project, but potentially beyond it. And that's incredibly valuable data if you learn how to use it, not just on the project, as I said, but as how you guide the direction of your organization and the investment that you make into different projects. So I think Fund It would also be a really valuable tool for that. The other thing that I really like about those methods and the way you've presented them are that they're both fun, so a bit, engaging, genuinely engaging, but they're deliberative. So they encourage people to think. And even the way that you've presented the consultation in Place Story presents the information, but gets people to answer questions as they're looking at that information in really interesting ways. So I just wanted to share my appreciation for the way that you're improving the practice of online engagement and making it more deliberative, and using different techniques to educate, to crowdsource, to consult in really much more creative ways that do encourage that sort of deliberation and make online engagement a bit more fun. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Amelia. Appreciate it.
But you've obviously thought about the bottom of the spectrum as well with this information and issues management. And when you talk about empowerment and civic life, I can see, Adam, that you're thinking beyond just projects and beyond just the immediate engagement. Do you want to share a little bit about your perspective on that before we move into the next question?
Yeah, I think the future of where this stuff is heading is really in this idea, and where I would like to push it is is really in this idea of community building, and how do we have sort of this stuff ongoing as a kind of a right. You know, a lot of governments are structured to deliver things through projects. So that's often the lens that we approach them through. But there's something to be said for this kind of idea of community building, where I can join an online community that's an extension of my physical community, or even a community of interest, and really start to engage and start to connect with other people that share those kind of interests. And I guess that's bringing it to the highest level of your spectrum, which is about how do you empower people to drive the change themselves, and start to innovate in this space without the kind of coercion, or sorry, that's not the right word, the support of government. So I think that's really where it's headed. And how do we build online communities, and how do we conduct kind of longitudinal research over time, so that's not just siloed into these projects, but we're looking at data, over a period of 5, 10, 15 years, and we're seeing how trends change and how people's opinions and sentiments change.
I think you've raised two really good points, Adam. One is that this kind of practice of broader engagement beyond projects can enlighten an organisation over time, as well as educate the community, and there's a really important role for government to be doing that. To be smart governments are well informed, right? They're well informed. They're prioritising where they serve the community based on what the community is telling them that they need. As well as being efficient with some of these fancy amazing technologies that we're seeing through the smart government movement. But on the flip side of that, a lot of the engagement practices that we've seen in the past, when they talk about empowerment, it's actually not so much, it's about empowering individuals to make the decisions in community engagement practice, rather than empowering them to do something. And I think what we've seen in the civic tech space, rather than the EngageTech space, which is much more focused on government, is technology that actually builds community. So it's nice to see people who are now working in the EngageTech space looking at the role of government to build community and to empower them to go and contribute by doing things in their community, rather than contributing to government decision making.
Yeah, and I really like that idea of people being the kind of prime movers of activating their environments, and this idea that people can be involved in that implementation process of actually making things happen, and how government can leverage that community as a kind of really valuable resource.
Yeah, and if no one's heard of it yet, there's some really amazing work going through the Centre for Civic Innovation in that space, and Adam and I are both involved in that. So I think that's why we're looking at this type of work through that lens, and also why we've been selected to be a part of that organisation, that team, as part of Smart Cities. But let's move into the really important role that practitioners in local government and in state government and federal government play in utilising these engagement technologies on their projects, but also for the kind of change that's required to facilitate that role of government. And I really want to break down into brass tacks here, Adam, because they have a responsibility of selecting, so procuring and implementing these systems for engagement and these better practices. But they often already have a website, and they're not the IT person within their organisation. So the first question when I am asked to look at EngageTech for government by agencies and by those web managers, IT managers, CTOs, CDOs, is how will this work with what we've already got in our organisation? So how's it going to work with my website? And you talked about some GIS tools. How does it work with the existing tools that government are using for those purposes already?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, especially as government is investing more into their digital channels, and want to get a better return on that. Now, the reality of it is that you're never going to have one website or digital channel that can do everything, as much as people would like to believe that it is impossible. And there's always going to be kind of specialized services that help you with that. But I think there's a lot of opportunities, and something we're exploring is how do you deliver some of these tools in a way that kind of can better integrate and fit within the context of those existing digital channels. So we're looking at, the Hive at the moment is delivered at a kind of platform level, so that it is a standalone website that you would make links to your website on. But also there's a series of APIs that you can draw information out. So you can actually, set up a list of engagements that are currently active on your own website and then link them off to the platform, and the user wouldn't know any different. But also we're exploring this idea of how do you take individual tools and embed them within the website directly, and then you still have the benefit of some of the backend features of a tool like the Hive. So there's all these different ways that we're looking at. How do you run from things like from embeddable tools all the way down to full designated platforms and everything in between.
That's great. Thanks, Adam. So it's probably the number one question that I get asked by government agencies, looking at the different kinds of technologies for engagement. The other question is data. It's data storage. So that's for me, that's a really big differentiator between EngageTech and EngageTech. These tools need to be, well, firstly, have some security considerations around them, and particularly have security considerations around where that data is stored and managed and how it's used. And obviously, as a citizen, I like to know that my government is considering these things and is safe about that. So as a provider of engagement technology to government, how do you guys consider government security and data storage? And how do you meet those needs, particularly of the Australian and New Zealand government market?
Yep. So I guess we almost exclusively work with government, so this is something that we're used to dealing with on a daily basis. There's a temptation that you can see a new tool somewhere on the internet and say, oh, I'll just grab that and use that in my engagement. But the reality is there's all kinds of legislation and barriers for actually doing that, and for good reason. So because we work in this space exclusively, we've spent a lot of time and invested a lot of effort into making our products secure. All of our products are hosted in the country that of our customer. So if you're in Australia, it would be hosted in Australia. We use Amazon Web Services to drive that, which gives you a degree of comfortability and security at that level of the stack. And then we add on that these kind of security features and privacy protection and all of these kind of things that we're all used to dealing with. We've dealt with so many of them in the past that we're sort of grabbing all the different requirements and cobbling them up into a really tight, quite secure package.
Yeah, I think with the more clients that you work with, the more security you learn to embed, because lots of people have different types of requirements, but I think that's one of the benefits of going with a provider that's got a lot of experience working with government, is that they've built up that experience. So if you're working in community engagement inside a government agency, that's a really good place to start when you have your conversation with your privacy officer. There's usually one in every organisation, and if you do want to help transform your organisation to be a little bit more open and transparent and engaging and collaborative, one way you can do that is to start having that conversation with your privacy officer, which will provide invaluable insight into how to get permission, particularly for the use of that data to, as we discussed with Adam before, enlighten the organisation over long term, and also continue engaging with those stakeholders on an ongoing basis and encouraging them to participate in what Adam calls civic life, and what we refer to generally as civic innovation, encouraging them to self-serve and as well as participate in government engagements in a safe way. Adam, we've talked a little bit about reporting and data through your system, and you showed was that like a PDF that was an export from your system? What are the other types of reports you can get out of your system, and what are people typically generating?
There's a whole range of data. So on one hand, there's a whole bunch of web metrics. So we used an open source platform called Matomo. So this is like a Google Analytics, but it's importantly not Google. So we don't recommend that you hook up Google Analytics, because they're a very large company and we don't exactly know what they're doing with our data. So we use this platform to integrate into the Hive, and we capture all sorts of metrics around how people interact with your products, how they use them, how they navigate around, what actions they do. So there's a really rich data set there. And then we combine these with kind of these engagement insights and the actual data that you're collecting through the tools. So people can generate a report. The ones we looked at were about, let's see if I can pull this up. ones we looked at were really focused on kind of some of the web metrics.
Mhm.
And then this report here I'm showing you is about the demographic information. So who is it that you're engaging with?
Mhm.
And then you can also get reports on things like um, your actual tools. So if you conducted a survey, sorry, I'm just trying to see if I have one available. If you conducted a survey, you want to crunch those numbers, and at least in the quantitative uh, space, you can start to get reports that will automatically do that kind of analysis. So if you're asking kind of prioritization or ranking questions, you can get those automatically compiled, or they're multiple choice questions, and you can get that done. Qualitative analysis is a bit more difficult. In that space, this is people's comments, and there's a lot of talk about AI, and it's certainly something we're exploring to be able to automatically look at this stuff. But I have to say, at the end of the day, you have to read what people tell you.
Yeah.
There seems to be this idea that you can just somehow collect this and it will spit back a report that tells you all the answers. But fundamentally, you have to listen to what people say.
Yeah, as somebody who's been theming and coding data collected through community engagement for a long time, you can quantify it all you like, but the numbers don't say why. So,
Yeah,
and
that's
you
it.
also, one person applies a theme and a code differently to another. So, yeah, I agree with you, Adam. We do need to interact with the AI platforms that are available now for analyzing qualitative data. But if somebody did say have one of those platforms already in their organization, how might you work with that? And are there other community engagement products that you integrate well with, or GIS products that you integrate well with? How do you work with other products and providers, and what do you encourage people in government agencies to think about when they're looking at your tool and how it might complement what else is out there in the market?
Yeah, so I think the starting point is getting all your data in one place. And whether that's actually in a product like the Hive, or you set up some other kind of store and we're shipping data off into that, it's a really important aspect that it comes into one place, and probably that there's some kind of consistency in the way that you collect that data. So I think with a product like the Hive, we have a quite developed APIs that allow you to pull this information out and put them into different platforms. So for example, you could pull all your survey data and put them into an AI platform to do that analysis, or you could pull them into a business intelligence tool and really start to dissect what that data is, and create a whole range of customized dashboards for your needs. So it's really about the data collection and storage, but also about the movement of data. And you could do a whole range of things with it once you start to move it around.
Yeah, so I'm just going back to the EngageTech Spectrum for anybody listening and watching. On the EngageTech Spectrum, on the bottom level, you'll see two lines. One line is information and issues management. And I think any successful engagement, whether a project or if your organization is looking long-term about how it's going with engagement, it is important to collate that data together and have a look at what are the issues, how are we managing them proactively and tracking them, and are we being responsive to them? I think on the bottom line of the EngageTech Spectrum is relationship management. And we often talk about closing the loop in community engagement and going back to the stakeholders. Are there any relationship management, like how do you manage relationships, Adam, in your platform? And do you recommend working with the different like stakeholder relationship management system or customer relationship management systems?
Yeah, that's certainly something that you can do. You can pull all that user information out and store that in a separate platform. The Hive itself has some of these tools built into it, so it's going to collect registrations from people that you can collect some demographic and interest data. You can sort of start to filter that list down. Also, we've introduced a few new community building features. So if we take EngageVic, for example, if I sign up to EngageVic and I say I'm interested in engagements that are to do with the environment that are located in Eastern Melbourne, then when a new project gets published on here that sort of matches those interests, I'll get automatically notified of that engagement. So that's a way of re-engaging people, right? So nobody has to do anything. It's all taken care of by the platform. And I know that these things that are interested are there. I don't have any more excuses to say,
Mhm.
oh, well, I didn't know about that engagement or whatever. The other feature we've introduced is this, what we call the follow feature. And the follow feature, if you're a member of the site, you quickly just click this follow button on the projects that you're interested in or the engagements that you're interested in. And that's automatically linked to kind of a news feed. So every time a news item gets posted there, you can send out an automatic email back to those people
Mhm.
that do follow your project. And again, that idea of re-engaging, but also what you're talking about, which is closing the loop, and also one step further, which is about how do you have kind of that two-way communication. So maybe I have a news item that's saying, thanks everybody for coming out to this event. Tell me what you thought of that. So there's actually another level of engagement that's happening there.
That's great, Adam, and I think that's really useful when you're looking at promoting engagements as well. So if one project team, for example, has been engaging with your community, and then another project team within your organization, let's say you're engaging about energy and then you want to engage about water, it makes
Yep.
it easier for you to actually reach the people who you know in your community are interested in environmental issues. So I think just looking at the EngageTech Spectrum, it also fits into the promote side, and I think that's really important if people are thinking at that whole of organization
Yeah.
level of engagement and how we manage those relationships.
Just a comment on that, Amelia, that promotion is such an important aspect to all of this stuff. So I think I mentioned before, you can build the best tools in the world, or you can compose, this amazing kind of digital engagement website. But if nobody knows about it, it's all that effort is wasted, and
Yep.
it's hard work to get people to notice this stuff. So I wouldn't underestimate that in your engagement planning, the
Mm.
importance of promotion and how much effort that actually takes, because you sort of you get out what you put in these types of projects.
I think it's also a really nice way to build trust, to show you told us you're interested, so we're proactively engaging
Mm,
you and inviting you to participate. So yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Just two last questions. Adam, if you had to say the sort of top thing that differentiated you from other products on the market, what would that be? And if people are interested in getting in touch with you or Brian, Harvest Digital Planning, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's a really good question. I think the thing that we've come the way that we've come to answer that question is we sort of describe it as we're a company where data meets design. So both those things are super important. So hopefully in what I've showed you, you can tell that the way that something looks and functions is really important to getting this stuff actually effectively working. So that kind of idea of really great design and using that as a tool to inspire and actually captures people's interest is a defining feature of our work. But not only that, right? So that doesn't stand on its own. It not only has to look good, but it has to actually give you the information that you need to take action. So that's the data side of things. So we're also, in addition to being creative, we're very deeply analytical. So we understand data, we understand how it's collected, how it gets processed, and how it can be turned into something. And where those two things meet, that data and design, is really where we sit as a company. And also coming at it from a kind of place-based perspective, which we do as a company, I think that's another point of difference of ours.
Yeah. Great. And Adam, how do people get in touch with you and Brian?
If you want to get in touch with us, you can visit us on our website at harvestdp.com. On here, there's a big contact button where you can send us an email. Otherwise, you can email myself or Brian. It's just adam@harvestdp.com or brian@harvestdp.com.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time today, Adam. I just to reflect on the demo, as I said, I think you fit pretty much everywhere on the EngageTech spectrum. I think you might integrate the Harvest if you wanted to do sort of deeper collaboration and ongoing relationship management with your community, or possibly some visualizations. But I really like the offline engagement, the use of the tools for digital engagement offline, and the bringing together of the data through a variety of different methods, including promoting, educating, crowdsourcing, discussing, and making consultation particularly more deliberative. So thanks so much, Adam, for showing us the variety of ways that people can use your tools to engage with community and stakeholders. Have a wonderful day.
No problem. Thanks very much, Amelia.